Tank Morrison's reflection caught his eye in the rusty fork grill's window. Leather jacket pristine, silver skull ring gleaming, exactly the image of power he'd cultivated. The evening crowd parted before him as he strode in, phone already raised, hunting for tonight's entertainment. His crew's snickers behind him felt like a crown. That's when he saw her, the waitress with the scarred face working table 7. Tank Morrison's lips curled into a cruel smile as he positioned his phone, the skull ring clinking against the case. Perfect target. The leather of his jacket creaked as he adjusted his stance, framing the shot just right. "Watch this," he murmured to his followers, already imagining the hashtag going viral. Scared face would trend by midnight. But something was off. The waitress stood too straight, moved too precisely. When she turned, her eyes met his with a steel that made his finger freeze above the record button. No fear, no shame, just determination? Tank Morrison's grip tightened on his phone, knuckles whitening. Nobody looked at him like that. "Let's make this interesting," he announced, voice carrying across the suddenly hushed restaurant. His heavy boots echoed as he approached her table. Phone recording now. "Hey, Scarface, give us a smile for social media." The skull ring flashed as he gestured mockingly at his own unmarred face. That's when an older man at table 7 stood up, his bearing military sharp. "That's Staff Sergeant Grace Torres you're addressing, son. Purple Heart recipient, 2 tours in Afghanistan. Show some respect." Tank Morrison's world tilted. The phone nearly slipped from his suddenly damp palm. "Staff Sergeant?" The words hit him like physical blows. "Purple Heart?" His carefully constructed image of dominance cracked. The video was still recording, capturing every second of his faltering swagger. "Have you ever faced real courage, Mr. Morrison?" Grace Torres's voice cut through his confusion, steady as a surgeon's blade. "Or do you just hide behind that phone, making others small so you can feel big?" His crew's presence behind him evaporated. In the window's reflection, Tank Morrison watched his empire of fear begin to crumble. Already, other phones were rising, recording his moment of shame. #Tank Takedown was probably trending before he could even lower his arm. The skull ring felt cold against his skin now, no longer a symbol of power, but a weight dragging him down. How had his perfect target transformed into this mirror, reflecting everything hollow inside him? Type courage in the comments if you've ever witnessed false power crumble before real strength. Tank Morrison's mind raced back to his high school days, when being feared meant being safe. When did that protection become a prison? Looking at Grace Torres's scarred face and unflinching eyes, he confronted a terrifying question. What if everything he thought made him powerful was just proof of his weakness? The video was still rolling, capturing every microsecond of his unraveling. The restaurant had fallen silent except for the soft sounds of phones capturing his downfall. His own phone felt like evidence now, recording not his intended humiliation of another, but the beginning of his own long fall from toxic grace. Would Tank Morrison's carefully constructed kingdom of cruelty survive this collision with authentic strength? The answer was already writing itself across social media, one share at a time. Officer Tank Morrison's fingers traced the heavy skull ring as he scrolled through the social media firestorm. Each notification felt like another crack in his carefully constructed fortress of fear. The video of his confrontation with the Marine veteran was spreading faster than he could contain it, the comments sections filled with disgust at his behavior. His hand trembled slightly as he refreshed the page again, watching the view count climb past 50,000. The familiar weight of his skull ring caught the harsh fluorescent light of the rusty fork grill, where he'd chosen to return, partly out of defiance, and partly because he needed to understand why this particular incident was different. The sound of his boots on the worn tile floor didn't command the same fearful respect it had just hours ago. Other diners were openly staring now, their phones discreetly pointed in his direction, waiting for another outburst. "You've gotten soft, Tank," his uncle's voice echoed in his memory. Former Police Chief Morrison had taught him everything he knew about maintaining control through intimidation. "People only respect what they fear," he'd say, polishing his own skull ring, the very one Tank now wore. The ring had been passed down when his uncle retired amid a storm of misconduct allegations that mysteriously disappeared. Tank had learned that lesson well. Power protected power. But something about Grace Torres' quiet dignity had pierced that armor. Tank pulled up her service record on his phone. 2 tours in Afghanistan. Silver Star recipient. His thumb hovered over the screen as he read about her unit's rescue of civilian children under heavy fire. The comments section below the viral video was filling with veterans sharing their own stories of discrimination, of being treated like outsiders in the country they'd bled to protect. A notification popped up. The local Veterans Affairs office had shared the video. Then another. 3 prominent veterans advocacy groups had picked it up. The hashtag #TankTakedown was trending locally. Tank's throat tightened as he recognized names of powerful people in the comments, people even his uncle couldn't silence. Recent studies on institutional bias flashed through his mind, articles he'd dismissed as social justice nonsense. But now the statistics felt personal. 27% of veterans reported experiencing discrimination in service establishments. The research showed how unchecked authority figures often created cycles of abuse, each generation teaching the next how to maintain control through fear. Tank's phone buzzed with a text from his uncle. "Handle it like we taught you." But for the first time, Tank questioned whether he wanted to handle it that way. The skull ring felt heavier now, like it was burning into his flesh. He thought of all the others he'd intimidated over the years, wondering how many of them had service records, had families, had stories he'd never bothered to learn. A new comment appeared. "I served with Grace in Afghanistan. Want to hear what real courage looks like?" The comment had hundreds of replies already, each one chipping away at Tank's certainty. He found himself reading their stories, unable to look away from the reality he'd spent years denying. The server approached his table. Not Grace, but another waitress who couldn't quite hide her trembling hands as she set down his coffee. "Your uncle was just like you," she said quietly, then hurried away before he could respond. Tank watched her go, remembering how many times he'd seen that same fear in others, how he'd always interpreted it as respect. The coffee grew cold as Tank sat there, scrolling through an endless stream of veterans' stories, each one feeling like a personal accusation. His uncle had taught him that fear was strength, that intimidation was power. But sitting here, watching his carefully constructed world unravel through his phone screen, Tank Morrison faced a terrifying question. What if everything he'd learned about power was wrong? Type legacy, if you've ever questioned what you were taught about power. The skull ring caught the light again, and Tank could almost see his uncle's reflection in its polished surface. The weight of inherited prejudice, passed down like a family heirloom, suddenly felt unbearable. As #TankTakedown continued to spread, Tank Morrison realized he wasn't just facing a PR crisis. He was facing the collapse of everything he'd built his identity upon. Marine Corps veteran Grace Torres's hands shook as she set down plates at the Rusty Fork grill, where Tank Morrison a local troublemaker known for his aggressive behavior and prejudices, had been harassing her over her facial scars. His cruel mockery, captured on video and shared online with his intended hashtag #ScarFace, backfired when the community rallied behind Grace, revealing she earned those scars saving her fellow Marines in Fallujah. The viral video showed Tank's arrogant behavior and attempts to humiliate Grace, leading to a gathering storm of consequences he never expected. Tank Morrison's fingers trembled as he scrolled through his phone, each notification feeling like another nail in his coffin. His skull ring, usually a source of pride, now felt cold and heavy against his skin. The hashtag he'd created to mock that scarred waitress had completely backfired, with thousands sharing stories of military heroism instead of joining his cruel joke. His throat tightened as he read comment after comment praising Grace Torres' bravery in Fallujah. "Did you see what's trending?" his friend Bobby whispered nervously from across the table. "Man, you really stepped in it this time." The bell above the diner door chimed, a sound that used to mean nothing but now sent ice through Tank's veins. 6 Marines filed in, their presence commanding immediate attention. Tank's eyes darted to the exit, but his legs wouldn't move. His social media feeds kept updating. Marine Hero was now trending alongside videos of his mockery, each share feeling like another shovel of dirt on his reputation. His skull ring caught the diner's fluorescent light, and for the first time, Tank saw it differently. Not as a symbol of toughness, but of hollow intimidation. He'd worn it while filming himself harassing Grace, and now that video was everywhere, showing the world exactly who he was. The Marines settled into nearby booths, their quiet dignity a stark contrast to his earlier behavior. From the kitchen, he heard Grace's voice, steady, professional, unchanged despite everything he'd done. The sound made his stomach turn. His phone buzzed again. The local news wanted to interview him about the incident. The Marine's presence felt like a jury assembling, and Tank Morrison knew the verdict wouldn't be in his favor. "Type honor if you stand with our Marines," scrolled across his screen, followed by thousands of responses. His own words from the video played back in his head, each cruel joke now a testament to his ignorance. The skull ring seemed to tighten around his finger, a constant reminder of the person he'd chosen to be. The whispers started, first at nearby tables, then spreading like wildfire through the diner. Someone had uncovered his history of similar incidents, all cataloged on social media. His chest constricted as he realized this wasn't going away. This wasn't just another day of throwing his weight around. This was the moment his actions caught up with him. Tank Morrison, who'd always dominated every room he entered, now felt microscopic under the weight of collective judgment. His phone continued its relentless buzz, each notification another reminder of how spectacularly his attempt at cruelty had backfired. The skull ring, his talisman of intimidation, now felt like a shackle binding him to his mistakes. The Marines never said a word to him. They didn't have to. Their presence alone, combined with the viral spread of his actions, told Tank Morrison everything he needed to know about the consequences heading his way. His empire of fear was crumbling, and there wasn't a thing his skull ring could do to stop it. Tank Morrison gripped his skull ring tighter as the unmistakable sound of combat boots echoed through the rusty fork grill. His heart, once swelling with arrogance, now hammered against his ribs like a trapped animal. The Marines moved with a precision that made his own swagger feel hollow, each step a reminder of authentic power, so different from his manufactured intimidation. "Stand up, Morrison," commanded a voice that carried the weight of earned authority. Tank Morrison's legs trembled as he rose, his carefully cultivated image of strength dissolving under the steady gaze of real warriors. The skull ring felt cold against his skin, no longer a symbol of power, but a mark of his shame. His eyes darted to Grace Torres, standing among her fellow Marines, her medals gleaming under the diner's fluorescent lights. The same woman he'd mocked just hours ago now stood before him, her presence commanding a respect he'd never truly known. The viral video of his cruel taunts played on phones throughout the diner, his voice sounding smaller, pettier with each replay. "Your words about Sergeant Torres reached the base," another Marine stated, his voice carrying across the now silent diner. "We thought you should hear her story properly." The hashtag Morrison mockery flashed on screens around him, his humiliation spreading faster than his reputation ever had. Tank Morrison's fingers traced the skull ring nervously as Grace's combat history was recited. 2 tours, 3 lives saved under heavy fire, a silver star for valor. Each word hammered another crack into his facade. The sound of his own shallow breathing seemed to echo off the walls, matching the trembling in his hands. I didn't know," Tank Morrison stammered, his trademark sneer replaced by something unfamiliar. Fear, shame, the beginning of understanding. The diner's patrons, many filming with their phones, witnessed his carefully constructed world crumbling. "Type honor if you stand with real heroes," someone shouted, phones lighting up across the room. The skull ring slipped from Tank Morrison's sweating fingers, clattering against the tile floor with a sound that seemed to mark the death of his old self. Grace Torres stepped forward, her combat boots stopping inches from his fallen ring. "Your power was always an illusion, Morrison. Real strength? It's about protecting others, not tearing them down." Her words cut through his remaining defenses, leaving him exposed before the truth. Tank Morrison's legs gave way, and he sank back into his booth, surrounded by Marines who'd never needed skull rings or cruel words to prove their worth. The viral counter on #Morrison mockery hit 100,000 shares. His transformation from bully to broken man broadcast across the nation. "Share this moment to show what real power looks like." The call to action spread through the crowd as Tank Morrison sat, defeated, watching his artificial kingdom collapse. The skull ring lay abandoned on the floor, a discarded symbol of false strength, while real heroes stood tall around him. His voice, when it finally came, was barely a whisper. "I've been playing at power while you were living it." The admission hung in the air, captured by dozens of cameras, as Tank Morrison faced the consequences of his actions under the unwavering gaze of true warriors. Tank Morrison stared at his reflection in the diner's window, the morning sun casting harsh shadows across his face. 24 hours had transformed him from the feared owner of the Rusty Fork Grill into a man stripped bare of his pretenses. His hands, once adorned with that skull ring, felt naked now, a constant reminder of his spectacular fall from power. The viral footage of his cruelty had evolved into something he never expected. Respect. Our Heroes wasn't just trending. It had become a movement, with millions sharing stories of veterans like Grace Torres. Tank Morrison's name, once spoken in fearful whispers, now appeared in headlines as an example of prejudice confronted and defeated. His footsteps echoed heavily as he approached Grace's usual table. The breakfast rush crowd fell silent, phones discreetly recording what they hoped would be another viral moment. Tank's throat tightened as he removed the skull ring that had become his symbol of intimidation. The sound it made as he placed it on the table, that small, clear clink, seemed to reverberate through his very soul. I was wrong, Tank Morrison's voice cracked, the words feeling foreign on his tongue. I didn't just disrespect a veteran. I dishonored everything this country stands for. His fingers traced the ring's surface one last time, remembering how he'd used it to intimidate countless others before Grace. The diner's security camera captured it all, his trembling hands, the sunlight catching the abandoned ring, the tears he couldn't hide anymore. Within minutes, Morrison Learns started trending alongside what respect our heroes, his moment of redemption spreading as rapidly as his shame had. Tank's empire of fear had crumbled, but something stronger was rising from its ashes. The local veterans organization had offered to help him transform the Rusty Fork Grill into a haven for service members, with Grace Torres leading the initiative. His arrogance had cost him everything, but his humility was opening doors he never knew existed. That skull ring now sits in a display case at the diner's entrance, next to a framed photo of Grace in her marine dress blues. Tank Morrison sees it every morning. A reminder that true strength lies not in the power to hurt, but in the courage to change. Type respect if you believe everyone deserves a chance at redemption. The security cameras that once recorded his cruelty now capture something different. Tank Morrison greeting veterans with genuine respect, learning their stories, understanding the weight of their sacrifice. His viral infamy has become a testament to transformation, proving that even the deepest prejudices can be overcome when confronted with undeniable dignity. As the sun sets on this 24-hour journey, Tank Morrison stands at Grace's table one last time. The skull ring catches the fading light, its shadows no longer threatening but teaching. In its reflection, he sees not the man he was, but the man he's becoming. A reminder that sometimes losing everything is the only way to find yourself. Share this story if you believe change is possible. Let's make respect our heroes eternal.